For more than a century, the Japanese legal system treated divorce like a guillotine. When the blade fell, it didn't just sever the bond between a husband and wife, it sliced through the very fabric of parenthood, leaving one parent as the total sum of the child's world and the other as a legal non-entity. In the eyes of the Koseki, the all-powerful family registry, there was no room for a middle ground. A child could belong to a household, but they could not belong to two. To give a child stability meant to give them a single, solitary guardian, even if that meant the other parent had to be erased like a typo in a manuscript. Hello, I'm Eyerusalem Abrham, you're watching Infofeed.
The story of this transformation begins in the suit and silk of the Meiji era, 1868 up to 1912. As Japan rushed to modernize, it codified the lei system, a rigid patriarchal structure where the house was everything and the individual was nothing. In this era, children were viewed as the property of the lineage. If a marriage ended, the children remained with the head of the household, almost always the father, to ensure the family's continuity. The mother was often cast out, her name deleted from the family's legal records, and her access to her children terminated. In this world, the father was the son, and the mother was merely a shadow that could be chased away. When the smoke cleared after World War II, the American-led occupation sought to dismantle the lei system, hoping to instill Western values of individual dignity. They succeeded in changing the names of the laws, but they couldn't scrub the cultural preference for singularity from the Japanese heart. The legal system pivoted from a father-centric house model to a mother-centric clean break model. The logic was cold and binary. A child is like a delicate seedling. If you transplant it back and forth between two different gardens, the roots will fail. Therefore, for the child's peace of mind, the law mandated sole custody. By the 1960s and 70s, as Japan entered its economic golden age, the continuity principle became the law of the land. This meant that whoever held the child at the moment of separation, usually the mother, kept the child forever. This created a culture of abduction that haunted Japan for 50 years. If a parent feared a divorce was coming, they were incentivized to take the child and flee to a secret location. Once they had physical possession, the courts obsessed with continuity would grant them sole legal rights. The other parent, suddenly a non-custodial parent, found themselves in a legal black hole. They had no right to see their child, no right to know where they went to school, and no right to sign off on medical surgeries. They became the vanished. The human cost was staggering. Tens of thousands of children grew up in a silent half, believing the parent who left didn't love them, unaware that their father or mother might be standing outside the school gates just to catch a 3-second glimpse of them from across the street. Simultaneously, this system fueled a crisis of poverty. Because non-custodial parents were legally severed from their children, many left no responsibility to provide support. Single-mother households in Japan became some of the most economically vulnerable in the developed world, living in a paradox of sole responsibility without shared support. The tide began to turn in the 2010s. International pressure mounted as foreign governments grew tired of their citizens losing all access to their children after divorcing a Japanese national. Domestically, a new generation of left-behind parents began to organize, staging hunger strikes in the shadows of the National Diet and filing landmark lawsuits. They argued that stability was a hollow victory if it was built on a foundation of laws. They were joined by advocates for women's rights who realized that forcing a woman to carry 100% of the parental burden was its own form of systematic inequality. The debate was fierce. Opponents warned that joint custody would become a weapon for domestic abusers to continue their harassment through shared decisions. They worried that the Japanese culture of inryo, or resistance, and wa, or harmony, would be shattered by constant courtroom battles over where a child should go to high school or what religion they should follow. But the reformers won out by placing the child at the center of the story. They argued that a child is not a prize to be won, but a person who thrives on the love of two parents. They designed a law that allows for joint custody by default when parents agree, but maintains a fortress of sole custody in case of proven abuse or high conflict danger.
As the offices of the family court opened their doors this morning, the landscape of the Japanese family has been fundamentally altered. The clean break has been replaced by the shared responsibility. For the first time in over a century, the koseki is becoming flexible enough to hold the truth of a child's life. A father in a small village in Tohoku can now legally participate in the upbringing of his daughter in the heart of Shibuya. A mother can share the weight of tuition and healthcare with an ex-husband, turning a solo struggle into a joint mission. There is still a long road ahead. The culture must learn to communicate where it once chose silence, and the courts must learn to distinguish between healthy disagreement and dangerous control. But the era of vanishing parent is officially over. Today, Japan has decided that while a marriage may have an end date, the bond between a parent and a child is a story that never has to stop being written by both hands. The walls are down. The bridge is open. The family has been reunited by the law.